not know all these things. Your hemoglobin A1C. Let's talk about that for a second. So I got 5 emails this week. There's a new, and it's not even new. It's just the marketing on it is radical right now. And so there's this classification of peptides, drugs. It's a semaglutide. It's a GLP-1 inhibitor. So we make this product in our body called GLP-1. And it's basically what it does inside of us is it basically says, hey, you're full. You don't need to eat anymore. It's a ghrelin receptor. So ghrelin is a hormonal type substance in your body that basically triggers your brain to say, I'm full. So if we have adequate levels of GLP-1, our ghrelin works beautifully. We eat, body says, hey, I'm full. I'm good to go. Don't need to eat anymore, right? These are called semaglutides. I'll give you a little backstory just because I love science. You know how they figured this out? Like we have this in our body, but you know how they figured out that this might be a good quote unquote classification of drug? Is there was a guy who was studying the Gila monster, the giant lizards, the massive lizards, the Gila monsters. And they realized that the Gila monsters didn't eat very often. They could literally eat once a month. And so they studied the Gila monster's blood, and they realized that the Gila monsters had high concentrations of GLP-1. So the Gila monster always felt like it was full. So it didn't need to eat, right? But that was indigenous to the surroundings of the Gila monster not having access in desert terrains for lots of food. So they started the research and they created and realized that we already have GLP-1 inside of our systems. And so what these semaglutides do, right? And there's going to be, there's a million of them. Like if you can fall down and land on a list, I'll just rattle off a couple of them for you so you guys can know what I'm talking about. You've probably seen Ozempic. There's a Wegovy. There's a Ribulus. There's Trulicity. There's all these various versions of it, but basically what they are is they're GLP-1 receptor antagonists. And what they do is they tell your body that you're full. Now that sounds awesome, right? And this is a great classification of drug. I don't want anybody to think that I'm downplaying GLP-1s and that I'm thinking that like this is a horrible thing and nobody should ever take it. But there are some caveats, right? So what GLP-1 antagonists are going to do is they're going to stimulate the production of insulin, right? So these are going to be used. These are going to be, guys, this classification of drug was created for type 2 diabetics, okay? Type 2 diabetics, because of their high propensity for insulin resistance. And because obesity being a #1 comorbidity for death, the idea is that this drug will help people with obesity not eat as much, therefore it ingests fewer calories, therefore lose weight, right? So what it does is it stimulates insulin production. It slows down digestion, reducing the blood sugar spikes. So it makes you feel like you're full longer. And hopefully it's going to reduce your food intake. That's the whole premise behind this, right? It delays gastric emptying, meaning like when you eat food, you have this certain process called gastric emptying. Your body wants to get food from here, through here, and out the bottom, right? But when you delay gastric emptying, it makes you feel full longer, and hopefully you won't eat as much, right? It increases satiety, right? Satiety. That's always one of those words I never really know how to say, but who cares? I think you know what I'm saying. Increases the feeling of fullness, right? So these are all the reasons behind these particular drugs. Now, keep in mind, these are not the first line of defense for weight gain. What that means in the world of pharmaceuticals. And so first line of defense, right? First line therapies, a patient has to fail on a first line therapy in order for medically sound providers to then prescribe them the next line of therapy. And that's kind of how insurance works too. Like when you go and you get on a certain pharmaceutical, sometimes you have to fail on the first level in order for them to give you the better stuff on the second level, right? But a lot of times now practitioners have kind of gotten around that by just writing, kind of a bogus fake failure analysis. The only reason I know this is I worked in the pharmaceutical world, and this is what you had to deal with this constantly. So it's not a first line of defense. This is a serious medication with strict usage requirements, right? This is for people with obesity Like these are for people with type 2 diabetics. This is for people that can't lose weight, that are just massively struggling. So this is not something that should be just randomly taken by somebody who is, there's really no other way to say this, but just doesn't want to do the challenging work in order to lose the weight. And here's why, guys. And this is why the blood is so important. This is why the blood is so important. If you don't know your hemoglobin A1C numbers and they're not elevated, and you get on a GLP-1 receptor antagonist, you can have a stroke. I hope whatever was in your hand, you just dropped it on the floor. You could have a stroke. If this medication is not appropriate for your body, meaning your body, you don't have an elevated hemoglobin A1C level, you could have a stroke. You could have a heart attack. You could get so severely dehydrated that you could die. There's reports, there's cases. I've read the data. This is serious stuff. This is not, and this is why I get so fired up, because if you just go on Facebook, like there's clinics out there that'll prescribe this to you without ever even seeing you, without seeing your blood work. Guys, these have also been linked to thyroid cancers in people that don't need them. That's crazy. It's been linked to increasing the severity of diabetic retinopathy. Here's another caveat that nobody's talking about. 37% of the weight loss that people are using who are on a GLP-1 antagonist, 37%, write that number down so you can see it. 37% of the weight loss from a GLP-1 antagonist is from muscle mass, bone density, and connective tissue. Whatever you just picked up off the floor, I hope you dropped it again. Guys, you can't afford to lose 37% of your muscle mass, bone density, and connective tissue. Do you realize the problematic situation with that? If you're a female over the age of 50, osteoporosis is going to be a real thing in your life. If you lose 37% of your bone density, can you see the problem with that? Do you also understand the correlation between lean muscle mass and bone density? When you lose lean muscle mass, you lose bone density. Connective tissue. For those of you guys that have joint problems already, imagine losing 37% of your connective tissue, your ligaments and tendons that hold your knees and feet and toes and everything together. Can you see the situation? But nobody's telling you that. There's not a doctor on the planet that's telling you that. And I'm not telling you that to tell you not to take this medication. But if you're going to take this medication, you've got to be on a wellness program. You've got to be lifting weights. You've got to be working out. You've got to be eating enough protein to help your body overcome that side effect of losing 37% of your lean muscle mass. You've got to be doing weight-bearing exercise to increase the bone density, to strengthen the cartilage and the ligaments. You see the correlation? Nobody's telling you that. They're not even having you run your blood. Like if I don't know what your H1C level is and I put you on a GLP-1 antagonist, I am basically giving your body, it's like playing Russian roulette. If it's not right for you, you could have a stroke, guys. I can tell you a lot of things you don't want, and a stroke is one of those. Especially if it's preventable. I don't want to harp on this too much. And again, I want you to hear me when I say I am not telling you that this is a bad drug. I'm telling you that every drug in every situation comes with side effects. And I'm telling you those side effects need to be known. And there's people out there that are writing prescription medications. They're like drug dealers. They're not doing the homework. If somebody tries to put you on a GLP-1 and they don't run your blood and go over your hemoglobin A1C numbers with you, your liver function and everything else, they are playing Russian roulette with your life. I'm uncomfortable with that. And I hope you are too. So if you're going to do something like this, guys, Use your resources. You've got a wellness program right now. Guys, I've spent over 30 years in the medical community. I bet I know more medical professionals, from spine surgeons to brain surgeons to toenail doctors, than all of you put combined, only because this is what I've done forever. I used to read clinical data for a living. I've worked in the hospitals. I used to sell drugs. Like, I've got access. I can probably, this sounds like an asshole thing to say, I can probably read your blood work better than your doctor, because they don't do it every day. How many of you guys have gotten blood work and it came back with some lows and highs and your doctor never said a word about it? They're busy, but you've got access. If you've got blood and somebody hasn't read it, send it to me. And if I'm not smart enough, guess what I'm going to do? I know somebody who is. But you got to stop playing Russian roulette with your body. So this is an example. I get emails like this all the time, not just from you guys, but from people all over. Jay, should I be on a GLP-1? I can't lose weight. And the first answer is no in capital letters. And then we need to have a conversation. Like, it's not okay. That's not enough that you just can't lose weight. It's not enough. I got to know way more. And so should your doctor. They've got to know way more. Anything that I'm looking at the data. I'm looking at a piece of research right now. I'm going to read it to you. Link between GLP-1 antagonist and thyroid cancer. If I read that statement, I would pause everything I was doing and I would read more. I wouldn't just haphazardly do something because losing weight is challenging.